There are moments in life when the heat turns up and it feels like everything you thought was stable begins to burn away. But sometimes it's in those very flames that God begins to reveal his deepest truths. In today's episode, we're going to talk with a woman who has walked through a season that could have broken her, but instead it became the very place where her faith was forged. Welcome to the It's Your Story to Tell podcast, where we explore the beauty, pain, and redemption woven into our life stories. I'm your host, Megan Babcock, and today I'm joined by the powerful and faithful Shawna Foster. Thanks for being here, Shauna.
Wow, what a beautiful intro. Thank you so much, Megan, for having me.
Well, Shauna's walked through a fire most people wouldn't survive. In fact, we were just talking before we hit record about a rescheduling of our original podcast recording. Are you tired of repeating the same patterns, feeling stuck in your story, and wondering if real change is even possible? In my book, Unstuck, Break Free from What's Holding You Back and Create a Life You Love, I walk you through the path from survival to transformation, blending faith, neuroscience, and soul deep healing. This book, it's not just words on a page. It's a companion for your journey. Whether you've experienced trauma or just feel lost in the noise of life, Unstuck will meet you there with truth, compassion, and tools that actually work. It's time to stop surviving and start living your story with purpose. Grab your copy today on Amazon because of a fire. So, she has definitely had some really hard things that she has walked through. And yet, she's not just surviving, she's chosen to thrive. She listened, she's leaned in, and she's come out with a message for every woman who's ever felt broken, unseen, or weary. I'm like, okay, that's me. I've felt that before. So I know that there are so many women who are going to be listening to this and identifying with that message. So thank you so much for being here, for being willing to go deep and talk about your fire and how God revealed himself to you in the midst of it and how it changed you. So we're just going to jump right in. And
Let's
if
do it.
you don't mind telling us about that season and walking through the fire, and what was your heart experiencing during that time?
Oh my gosh. Complete pain and sorrow. I was living a nightmare, my worst nightmare. I think for most women, the thought of losing their children would be their worst nightmare. And I was living that and
Mm.
grieving the loss of them, even though they were still living. It brought physical pain and sickness and illness because of the trauma of enduring everything that I went through at that time. Shame. I was feeling so much shame. I was afraid that people would believe the lies that were being told about me. My children were believing them, and so many outsiders were believing them. People I didn't even know were believing these lies about me. And then just the guilt. I had so much guilt that I could not save my children. As moms, we want to protect them. We want to keep them from going through hard things. And to be honest, they lost their mom in that same moment, and I couldn't protect them from that. And I fought every single day and spent so much money trying to fight them and save them and rescue them from what they were enduring, and I couldn't. And that was the hardest thing, just being forced to release control because there was literally nothing I could do.
It was hard hearing your story because I was in a place where I had made it through to the other side with my daughter. 2 years of having little to no contact. I had one overnight in 2 years. She didn't wanna talk to me. She didn't wanna be around me. I was just there was just disgust in how she felt about me, and it broke my heart. And so I'm sorry that you are still walking in that space where there hasn't been resolution yet. And it is so hard when all of these lies and false beliefs, it's like almost, at least for me, I was like questioning myself, like, how is this even possible? Like, this is never a story that I ever thought I would be walking in because I loved my kids. I wasn't the perfect mom by any stretch of the imagination, but being an abuser or my questioning me being there, like that was something I could never imagine facing. And then the expense of trying to stay in your child's life. When we went through this, and last April is when my nightmare got to end, and my daughter was reunited with me. And I am believing that we serve a really good, gracious God, a God of truth, and that you will be reunited with your kids, and that what the enemy is trying to use will be exposed for what it is. And as someone who has been fortunate to see God's faithfulness, I'm standing with you in
Thank you.
this gap of like, okay, God, I'm doing everything I can, and now I have to release it to you. So that is a surrender that I don't think any mom ever could be prepared for. How did you come to that place where you said, okay, God, I'm going to surrender this? I'm can't do anything more. I'm going to trust you that you're a good God in the midst of something that is really unbearable.
Yeah, I just going through the court system and attorneys and therapists and evaluations and mediation, all of the things, and just witnessing that man was failing us, man was failing my family, they were failing my children every moment, every turn. And the proof was there in front of every single person. And yet, for whatever reason, nobody was helping, nobody was saving them, nobody was rescuing them. And just seeing that, being witness to that, really put me in a place where I just had to step back and just say, no man can help. The only person that can do this is God. And I just had to come into complete surrender. And sometimes I've thought about, gosh, had I been faithful enough to do that before all of the money and all of the time, would something have been different? And the truth is every time I come into my prayer closet and hit my knees frequently, and during that time, I can tell you it was hours at a time, and just completely bringing it back to the Father and having Him remind me that He loves them more than me. And that as as parents, Him included, we want to rescue our children from all of the hard things so that they don't have to experience it. But the truth is that we all have things that we need to go through so that we can become who He wants us to be. And sometimes those things hurt really bad. And it's just been a constant, even even today, it's a constant release to Him of complete control, complete surrender, and giving it all to Him, and knowing that it's His timing and His process, and there is reunification, but it may not look the way I wanted it to look. I mean, my look was that it would have never happened. So Yeah, just each and every day, it's still a complete surrender. And I see him moving and I celebrate that. And I'm excited and I'm scared and I'm grateful to witness his open door and look forward to whatever he has next. But I also love meeting parents like you that have gotten to the other side of that and that can shed. I mean, my hope is in the Lord, but to see your story and others like yours, it just helps that hope and makes it makes the waiting a little easier, I guess. And for all of us, that's a little different. I mean, there's a cute girl that is speaking out right now that is waking up from her alienation, and she was alienated from her father for 20 years. And my heart I just want to hug her and celebrate her and using her voice and speaking out and trying to rescue these children. But she was in it for a long time. And even though my long time seems like forever, and I know that the 2 years that you went through the battle, that was way more than 10 lifetimes, I'm sure. It's painful, but all in God's timing and all in the lessons that He needs us to pick up along the way and the people that we get to love and help.
When you talked about that full surrender, I remember I was about 2 months after my daughter was taken from me through an immediate danger order. I was at a women's conference and John Bevere was speaking on the awe of God. And he was speaking about the story of Abraham and Isaac. And God asked me to lay my daughter on the altar to death. And I was like, what kind of father? Like, God, I mean, you're asking me to lay her down to like my worst fear. And I was really struggling with saying yes to that. And he was so gentle with me and helping me to process that. And one of the things that I heard him say is, what if death is the best thing for someone? Because we don't know what death is a protection from. Now, that sounds so crazy as a parent, as a mother, as, wanting to keep your child safe and with you, right? And what he was getting me to look at was my worst fear, right? Because I had some fears of some really, really, really hard things that could happen in the situation that was happening. And so God needed me to look at my fear and choose faith in Him, no matter what the outcome, even if it was my worst fear, and trusting that He was still a good God, no matter what that outcome looked like. And after wrestling with that, I was like, okay, I'm going to trust you. I'm going to trust your promises. And then his next question to me was, okay, so when I told him you're going to go on this journey with Isaac and you're going to sacrifice him, they had to walk. I think it was 3 days. So you're sitting there, you're walking with your kids, you're having this conversation that your child's like, well, we don't have any sacrifice. And, having this conversation, a little awkward, like, well, son. um, but what God said to me is, how many times have you laid down your surrender and within 3 days you've picked it back up? And I'm like, wow, he knows me. Like, he sees me. And what he asked me is to not pick it back up. And I said, listen, you know me, I'm going to try. But what I will commit to is that I want to be so close to you and listening to you that you will help me see when I'm picking it back up so I can lay it back down. And I'm telling you, in 2 years, I probably picked it up over 700 times because at least daily,
Yep.
I'm like wanting to try to figure out, is there anything I can do? And I had to continually trust. And then there were things that happened, and I thought, "Oh, this is going to be the thing that changes it." And it never was. And then I remember we got to September and our trial got canceled. And I was like, God, what are you doing? Like, we just need to be able to have the time to lay out all the facts and it'll all be seen. And what God was really working on me in was that He wanted me to stop being my defender. Like, could I trust Him to be my defender? Because I have been a recovering perfectionist people pleaser. And so this all really was challenging that side of me and refining me. It was the fire, right? That was refining and these places that God wanted to do something in me, He was revealing to me. And He taught me so much. I got exposed to different types of therapies and, like you said, all these different skills. And I learned DBT, dialectical behavior therapy, and I ended up going on to get certified in it because it was so powerful. Because I had to learn how two things could exist at the same time. Something so painful, but yet there were still good things in my life. So, how have you been able to accept this really hard thing and also find joy in those hard moments? How have you like stayed anchored and not losing your mind, honestly? Because that's many days when I felt like I'm not even living in reality anymore.
Yeah, it definitely feels like the twilight zone. I think that's a constant pull. It's hard because the pain is so real and we're in the middle of this nightmare, and it's hard to feel like it's okay to smile and it's okay to laugh. And with that, I mean, just have gone through months and years of not even being able to smile or laugh. And then getting to the point where it's a complete surrender. And I think most of my complete surrender happened on that court date. And for me, it was in this particular moment, because there were several court dates before that, but in this particular moment, it was 21 months on an emergency order. How is an emergency 21 months later? It just doesn't make sense. And then all of the things that went through, but that's part of the tactic. It's part of the story. And in talking to parents that have gone through what we have and are going through, everybody tells that part of the story. So for me, the tactic was that at that 21-month mark, my oldest child would be over 18 and my number two child would be 16 and angry and a threat to the relationship. And that's exactly what happened. So we got to that 21 months and my daughter was over 18, so couldn't come home for visitation at that point. And then now we have 21 months of precedence of not following a court order. So it's not really going to matter if there's a court order today or not. And so at that point, I think that's when my total release was. I was like, okay, I fought the good fight. I did everything that I could have possibly done in my humanness. And now it's just up to you. And that was the moment I gave myself permission to heal because I was just in fight mode that whole time.
Yeah.
And so I didn't have, I didn't, I didn't have the time or the energy or my own permission to heal at that point. And I remember my husband saying, this is going to cause some really bad health problems. My husband's a functional medicine doctor. And the whole time he's like, we're going to deal with some big health problems. And I was like, I trust you. I trust you to fix me on the other side of this because I, I just didn't feel like I had any control to make any difference. And so at that 21 months, I released all control and I gave myself permission to heal. And I also found wonderful new modalities and I get to share those with others as well. But it was really hard. And I'm sure now on your other side, all that you were able to learn, you get to use to help your daughter and
So true.
and support her in her own unraveling.
Mhm.
And I just think that's such a beautiful thing. And I'm grateful for all that I've learned in the healing and then the release and the learning to smile again and giving myself permission. Last year, my husband and I and our youngest went on a trip. And I remember praying up to the day that we left for the trip. And I was like, just let me be in the moment and let me laugh
Mm.
and play and just be in the joy and experience all of it, whatever it is. I just want to be able to experience it and not feel guilty that we
Mhm.
don't get to share it with the other two and that they're not here and um, that I'm smiling without them and enjoying this time with their brother and and that they're not here. So there was a lot of emotion around that, but I think it's daily, really, um, the giving myself permission to find joy and live in joy and to thrive.
Yeah, it's definitely daily. And what I'm finding is that is the skill that he wants us all to learn, not just for those moments where it is unimaginably hard, but also for the leading and guiding that he wants to use our lives to make a difference, right? He wants us to be willing to hear his voice and to be obedient. And that's the season that when I was able to surrender, I stepped into a more radical obedience and a greater level of compassion, including my ex-husband. And there were many surrenders along this path. And I remember when God asked me to start praying for dad.
Mhm.
And I was like, I have no prayer words to use, but what I will do, and so this is what's really cool about God, is if you will just say, like, I'm going to step in and lean in just a little bit, he meets you there and helps you to go further. It's when we stay stuck and we resist what he's asking us to do that we can't keep moving. And that's what he wants. He wants to continue to move us through these hard things and then equipping us to new levels and then allowing us to go back and help people who are just a few steps behind us. And I was like, okay, well, I know there's scripture that says like the Holy Spirit can pray on my behalf. So I'm going to make intentional time and I'm going to sit there and say, you know why I'm here?
My same words.
Speak through me, pray for me, right? But I am surrendering my what felt like my right to be angry and to judge this other person to say, I want to be like Jesus. And so we did that. And then it was like, okay, now I'm ready for you to pray and use your mouth, right? Because there's so much power in our words. And I knew that I was really struggling in my heart, even though I was sitting there, I was making space, I was still holding on to my, could you do this? You know me, you know how I love our kids. And we were both dysfunctional. Like we were not healthy together and I needed to do my work. And I was like, "You need to do your work." But we cannot do anyone else's work for them. It doesn't matter how much we want it. And in January, I was in Mississippi, where we now live, because we were allowed to relocate, my daughter and I and my husband. We were here for a college visit for my husband's daughter, and we were in church, and God's like, "Today's the day. You're surrendering it, you're laying it down. Whatever happens in the court, like, doesn't matter. Like, you are who I say you are. It doesn't matter what people think. It doesn't matter what this person has tried to do with your relationship. Like, you're just gonna let it all go." And I remember surrendering and the song that was playing, and I don't like to go forward and have people look at me, but God was like, "No, you are actually going to step out of your row. You're gonna go forward in this church that I now worship in and surrender." Because we need to have those things that we can remember, "Okay, I actually did agree to this."
Mhm.
Because it's gonna be hard when you have to walk it out. And, uh, it was now been a couple months, and it was 20 almost exactly 24 months to the day for us. And what was so crazy about our story is that the judge that awarded the immediate danger, the emergency order, ended up being our judge for the trial. And God knew that he had to move that court date in September that then got rescheduled all the way out to April because there was so much work still to be done in my own heart. And so to prepare me for, like you said, when my daughter came back into my life, because I needed to be different. I needed to not be angry. She didn't need a mom that had all of this stuff that was unprocessed. And so we spent that time. And then in probably about just before the hearing that we had to get relocated and allow us to stay in Mississippi, because the judge, when she ruled in April, she allowed Bella to come back with me and for us to go to New York for a really amazing program. It's called Turning Points for Family. And we went through this 4-day intensive reunification program. And then she let us go to Mississippi so that we could be with my family and have a place to heal. And I before we went back to a court hearing in August, I was standing in the same row, worshiping next to my daughter, and God called me forward again and said, "We don't know what the outcome of all of this, like, you need to trust me and to remember where you were in January to where you are now." And as I was worshiping in the front of the church, next thing I know, my daughter is standing there worshiping with me to the same song that was playing in January. God is so good. He loves us. I love that you've highlighted, like, he loves us more than we could ever imagine. He loves our children more than we can imagine. And that was something I had to really like start believing. And he has a good plan, even in the midst of this really, really hard stuff. But when we trust that his timing is not our timing, but his plans are good, we can take that step every day and keep surrendering it. So, as we wrap up this part, if someone's listening and they're in the middle of it right now, the fire, the fight, the exhaustion, the anger, and trying to figure out what to do next, what is a word of an encouragement that you could offer them?
With all of my heart, um, I just want to remind them that God wants us to come to Him. He wants us to bring all of it to Him, even even our anger and our frustration, our sadness, our pain, our suffering. Um, he wants us to bring it to Him. He's not going to be offended. His feelings aren't going to be hurt. He's not going to turn away from us or withdraw His love from us or His provision from us. He truly wants to be in relationship and carry us through. There's not a moment of my life, really, and especially this story, that He hasn't carried me through every moment. But that takes us coming to Him. And so many times when I get emails and text messages all the time, and women are like, I just can't feel Him. He doesn't feel close. And the truth of the matter is He's right there. If we're not feeling Him, it's because we're not coming.
Yes.
We're withholding ourselves from Him. And so it's my sincere hope and my whole heart. Just, I want to invite you back, come to the Father and let Him hold you. Just, even if you don't have words, just sit and be with Him and feel His comfort. And that's the thing, is we have to allow it, right? We can sit there and
Yes.
just be cranky and He's not here. I can't feel Him. He's not talking to me. That's not true at all. We need to lower that shield and let Him come in and let Him be present. And if it means we're screaming, then we scream. If it means we're crying, then we cry. And if it means we're praising, then we praise. And I promise, in all of that, in all of what we might feel is yucky or ugly that we're bringing to Him, He has such a beautiful way of turning our heart around and bringing it to gratitude and bringing it to praise. And we'll feel that too. We just might have to sit a little longer.
Such a good word. Thank you for sharing that. I know it means so much for people to hear the story of the hard so that they can receive the hope, because this isn't just someone who is saying the words that all things are possible with God.
Right.
It's that, yes, that's true. And I've had to walk through the valley of the shadow of death. And thank you so much for sharing that part of your journey. I know that is a hard thing to talk about, and it's not something that people really even understand or know even exists. And so it is really important that we have these conversations so people don't feel alone when they're walking in it. You
Absolutely.
guys, Shauna's story reminds us that the fire isn't the end. My story reminds you that the fire isn't the end, that God is doing His most intimate work when we're in these really hard and dark places. And He doesn't always rescue us. I know I wanted that. I was like, please just do a miracle. But He will always meet us there, and He always has a plan for what it is that you're walking through.
So good.
In part 2, we're going to talk about what happened after the fire, how Shauna began to pour what she learned into a book for other women, and how she's using her voice now to speak life over those still in the ashes. Until then, take heart. God is with you in the waiting, in the weeping, and even in the wilderness. Come back and join us for part 2.